presentation concerns the self-assessment analysis of research organization from an RRI perspective. This presentation is largely based on the experience of GRACE, that is a project that ended recently. The content of my presentation concerns 5 points: what the self-assessment analysis is and why it's done, what is assessed, who assesses, how the self-assessment can be done, and critical issues in self-assessment analysis. As for the point 1, what the self-assessment analysis is and why it is done, it is to consider that self-assessment is usually adopted in organization to make a diagnostic investigation aimed at assessing the readiness and risk of the organization for planned change, also because there is a high rate of failure in organizational change initiatives. However, self-assessment could be considered and much more take into consideration the changes are affecting organization, the shift from modern to late modern society, that is from the 1960s onward. In the past, I can say in the modernity realm, in the modernity context, organizations were considered order, rational, and hierarchical systems, while now we are much more aware that organization can be considered as dynamic assemblages of stakeholders, components, and actors. So while in the past, the structures of organization were formalized and the norms were formalized, and organization had clear internal boundaries, now organization shows changeable structures and blurring internal boundaries. So also how to activate change has been modified. In the past, change was considered as dictated from the top and gradually imposed to lower levels. Now is based on mobilization, on consent of the key actors, the presence of internal change agents, the use of inclusive methods, and the capacity to develop new mobilizing visions. So self-assessment analysis no longer concern only as a diagnostic investigation to assess the readiness for planned change, but could play different roles, including setting new priority, in our case, GRRI, communicating and raising awareness about the change we would like to promote, creating coalitions, mobilizing internal stakeholders around the proposed change, or creating a policy pressure in order to urge staff and leaders to make a specific change that is still not planned. Point 2, what to assess the GRRI perspective. GRRI is a composite, even ambiguous concept. Is made up of 5 GRRI pillars or keys, 4 GRRI dimensions. So self-assessment cannot encompass everything. We need to set priorities and define what we would like to assess. Everything is impossible. The second point to consider is that the 5 keys are not new at all. They have already been dealt with in the past. They have an history. So there is a community of research for each key. There is a community of practitioners around each keys, journals, scholars, wide theoretical and practical knowledge, etc. So for any research organization, there are initiatives, programs, regulations, even laws concerning the different keys. This means that self-assessment analysis does not start from scratch, but we need to map the existing GRRI initiatives and the existing expertise within the organization. Third point, who assess? This is an important aspect because self-assessment can be carried out by different actors, including the leadership, the HR department, a head of a department, a team with external funds. So different actors could be in charge of carrying out a self-assessment analysis. We have to consider that at least 4 basic requirements should be preliminarily verified. The first one is the recognition, that is the promoter legally and socially recognized and has the power, the authority to carry out the self-assessment. Second is the influence. Does the promoter able to make the self-assessment analysis attractive to the staff, is able to mobilize key internal stakeholders. Third, the skills. Has the promoter all the skills to carry out the self-assessment analysis? And fourth, the results management. Has the promoter enough power to manage the self-assessment analysis results in order to turn them into actions? There are different strategies to face different aspects. For example, lack of recognitions could be faced through securing visible leader support, establishing alliance with internal stakeholders, looking for the approval of the university board for any action and activities done, including full professors in the team. The lack of influence could be dealt with through organizing preliminary sensitization meetings, circulating information on the self-assessment analysis, involving key actors, involving RRI champions, that is, people that are already engaged with RRI initiatives. The lack of skills could be dealt with through new experts in organization, using external resources, for example, online handbooks, or using external experts, participating in the training activities. And the lack of resource management means that it's necessary to establish preliminary agreements with the leaders or internal stakeholders about the future actions to trigger on the basis of the results of the self-assessment analysis. So it's important to consider that the composition and capacity of the RRI team is pivotal, is usually overlooked, and assessing them before starting the process is needed. Fourth point, how the self-assessment could be done. Usually, self-assessment analysis is organized as any other research project, so it includes assessment areas, identifying the assessment area and topics, identify the methods and to collect data, how to interpret data, and reporting procedures. So I would like to stress that there are many guidance documents like handbooks, guidelines for each key concerning how to organize an assessment process. So starting from scratch again is senseless. As for the identification of the assessment areas, it is important to organize the area, the keys, into different areas, and there are many schemes available. For example, for gender equality, usually 5 different areas are considered: the recruitment process, the career development and women access to leadership position, work-life balance and working environment. 4, the gender sex dimension in research contents and in teaching. And 5, gender-based violence, sexual harassment. There is quite a conventional organization of the areas that could be useful. The same could be found for open access and the other keys. So in the case of GRACE, we produced 7 documents aimed at providing the different teams with schemes, basic information, resources, checklists, in order to organize the keys into different areas, understanding how to approach each areas properly. As for the assessment topics, that is what we need to know, at least 4 questions, I believe, should be considered. The first one is the institutional activity, that is what has been done by the organization and what has been not done. The second is the non-institutional activities, because that is what RRI experiences have been done by individual researcher, individual department, different individual staff members. The third point, understanding which are the obstacles, the resistance and facilitating factors concerning the different keys and the different areas. And the fourth topic is understanding the perception of staff members about the RRI topics, their level of knowledge, their attitudes, their orientations, their expectations, and the like. It could be useful to organize preliminary interviews with key stakeholders and officers before the design of the self-assessment analysis. As for method and sources, the first point is the administrative data. It now include any forms of involvement of other actors, but is pivotal for getting important data about the organization. The second kind of tools is the one-way communication tools like surveys and interviews, enabling you to get information about, for example, the perceptions of gender-related aspects, the functioning of ethical procedures, the researchers' attitude towards open access, citizen engagement, ethical issues, etc. And there is another kind of approach, the two-way communications tools like workshops and focus group, that is particularly important to address critical issues, to co-create new solutions, to deepen aspects where conflicts have been recorded. And as for data interpretation and reporting, there are two different alternatives. The first one, data interpretation, is done by directly the team. Otherwise, it's possible to involve stakeholders that it could be particularly useful in order to set up sound action plans on the basis of the results of the self-assessment process. Reports should be prepared, should be disseminated in a different way, like preparing and circulating a summary of the report, organizing presentation meetings with internal or external stakeholders, making the report available on the institutional website, etc. Last point, some critical issues. The first one is the institutional framework. Self-assessment analysis needs to be carried out in a solid institutional framework. Should be supported by the leadership. The cost should be covered. Those who carried out the analysis and possible external experts should be paid. Any effort should be done to make the self-assessment exercise a periodic initiative. So a feeble institutional framework leads to a feeble self-assessment analysis. Second critical point is the willingness to participate, because there is usually a hidden assumption that stakeholders and citizens by definition want to participate. This is not necessarily true. Mobilizing people is usually very, very difficult. Many people, many stakeholders do not want to participate for different reasons, lack of time, fear to take on responsibility, lack of trust, etc. So participation cannot be taken for granted. Third point, structural resistances, because self-assessment may touch on issues that are sensitive, ethical issues, gender issues, or issues that are controversial. RRI can affect specific interests, can affect power distribution, internal competition dynamics, etc. So tensions and conflict could arise. And that's not necessarily negative, because this means that you are starting a change process, but tensions and conflicts should be identified and properly managed, also at the level of self-assessment analysis. Another point is the reliability of the results. Especially in research organization, the expectation of staffs, of the leaders, is that the results of assessment analysis are reliable, are methodological sound. The report is statistically sounded. The tools have been tested. That is, the results is robust. Hence, also the importance to involve external experts if needed, in order to increase the reliability of results. Finally, the management of results, because self-assessment is anyhow useful, but to be really impactful, it should be intended, it should be presented as the first step to orient, to develop RRI institutional changes. So attention should be devoted from the sketch, from the beginning, to the management of results, in order to shape also the self-assessment exercise according to how its results will be used. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.